No ghost ship story is as intensely mysterious, yet thoroughly documented, as the tale of the SS Baychimo. Unlike the dusty maritime myths of old, Baychimo's story dates back less than a century, making it one of the most intriguing modern ghost vessels. Originally built in the early 1920s for a German company, the ship soon became British property, and later it passed into Canadian hands under the Hudson's Bay Company. For years, Baychimo worked as a reliable cargo vessel, hauling everything from furs to everyday provisions across remote northern routes. But in October 1931, that routine life came to a freezing halt. Packed ice snared the ship near Alaska. Unable to move and with storms raging, most of the crew evacuated, leaving a handful of stubborn sailors to stand by the vessel. They believed they could somehow salvage the cargo of precious furs worth tens of thousands of dollars if they stuck out the brutal winter. They built a makeshift camp nearby, tried to brace for the worst, and hoped that the ice would set the ship free once the weather warmed. But in late November, a fierce blizzard hammered the region. After the storm passed, Baychimo had simply vanished from the spot where it had been lodged. The crew was convinced their steel-hulled vessel had finally succumbed and sunk, its cargo lost forever. But only days later, word arrived from a local Inuit hunter that he'd sighted a large steamship drifting offshore, untouched, still afloat. When the startled sailors traced the coordinates, they found the missing Baychimo. Determined not to risk further disaster, they took the most valuable furs and left the vessel to the whims of the Arctic. Over the next 4 decades, sightings of the Baychimo ghost ship popped up all along the coasts of Alaska and Canada. Explorers would occasionally board her, finding the hull still intact but the ship eerily deserted. Treasure hunters tried towing her to port more than once, but raging weather always forced them to abandon the project. By the 1960s, Baychimo had become a true legend of the North, at times glimpsed drifting aimlessly through frigid waters, seemingly impervious to time and tide. Since 1969, there have been no confirmed reports of the Baychimo. Nobody can say for certain if it finally sank beneath the ice or still wanders the open sea, concealed by Arctic storms. This real-life case stands as a modern example of how the ocean can transform a mundane cargo carrier into a piece of living folklore. Arctic officials and amateur adventurers have occasionally launched missions to find its final resting place, but so far they've come up empty-handed. Did it corrode into oblivion below the waves, or does it remain locked in an endless expedition, continuing its lonely voyage without a single soul on board? One theory suggests it might have become trapped once more and eventually sank. Another rumor hints that shifting ice could carry it endlessly. Either way, Baychimo's final whereabouts remain a subject of ongoing curiosity. While it's easy to brand the story with supernatural undertones, logical explanations for the events do exist: extreme weather, drifting ice flows, and repeated attempts at salvage gone wrong. Yet the core enigma stays the same: this was a tangible, real ship, and it vanished multiple times, once with a hoard of cargo that no one ever reclaimed. Until evidence proves otherwise, the SS Baychimo remains one of the most enduring ghost ships in maritime history. Centuries before steam-powered ships existed, sailors across the globe exchanged tall tales of an eternal phantom vessel doomed to sail forever. The most notorious of these is the Flying Dutchman. According to legend, it was captained by a fearless Dutch seaman who, defying a monstrous storm off the Cape of Good Hope, dared the heavens themselves. Some versions say he insisted on sailing around the Cape even as his crew begged for mercy. Others claim the Dutchman's captain made a dark pact to speed his journey, although the cost was perpetual wandering with no chance of landfall. Throughout the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, mariners from Britain to Australia swore they glimpsed a ghostly ship emerging from heavy mist, sails battered by invisible winds. Then, in the blink of an eye, it would vanish. Among the many rumored sightings was an account by a British monarch. When the future King George V served as a midshipman, he supposedly witnessed a hazy silhouette of the Flying Dutchman near Australia. That night, the lookout who first spotted it allegedly met an ill fate, fueling tales that seeing the Dutchman heralds doom. But behind the romance of curses and illusions, science offers a more grounded explanation: fata morgana, a type of atmospheric refraction common in polar or coastal regions. When layers of air at different temperatures bend light, faraway objects, like a ship just beyond the horizon, can appear as if they're hovering or distorting above the water's surface. In the right conditions, the image can appear and vanish rapidly. Mariners without modern instrumentation sometimes misread this optical trick as a ship from another dimension. The effect can be mesmerizing, turning normal vessels into hazy illusions that fade into the distance as swiftly as they appear. Does that mean the Flying Dutchman is just an epic nautical hallucination? Possibly, but no one can fully extinguish the mystique such a rich story holds. After all, some sightings remain particularly hard to brush off, and many sailors swear what they experienced was far more than a mirage. The line between superstition and reality has always been blurred on the high seas, where survival hinges on the wind's mood and the ocean's temperament. Even so, the Dutchman's enduring legacy speaks to something deeper in our collective imagination, a deep-seated fear that certain transgressions at sea can never be undone, condemning a ship and its captain to the watery unknown. Whether you see it as a moral parable or a reflection of atmospheric wonders, the Flying Dutchman reminds us that legends of ghost ships aren't born in a vacuum. They emerge from the human need to explain the unexplainable, mixing real phenomena with the maritime world's timeless superstition. And just when you think such ancient lore might be too far-fetched, modern ghost ships like Baychimo show us that reality can be stranger than fiction. The ocean, despite today's advanced navigation systems, remains an ever-changing frontier filled with phenomena we can't always predict or explain. If the Dutchman belongs more to the realm of myth, then the Mary Celeste stands firmly in historical fact. On December 5, 1872, a British brig named Dei Grazia sailed across the Atlantic, spotting another vessel drifting aimlessly. Its sails were partly set, but not a soul appeared on deck. The strange ship was identified as the Mary Celeste. Captain Morehouse of the Dei Grazia found no signs of violence, just a half-eaten breakfast, personal belongings neatly stowed, and a cargo hold full of industrial alcohol intact. The single lifeboat was gone, but there was no reason to abandon ship so hastily. Records show that Mary Celeste departed from New York bound for Genoa with a crew of 10, led by Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, and their daughter. There was no distress signal, and the ship was seaworthy when found. So why flee and risk launching the small lifeboat in uncertain waters? Conspiracy theories flourished: pirates, mutiny, sabotage, or even sea monsters. Investigations hinted at an accidental problem with the cargo. Some suspect a pressure buildup in the barrels could have caused a small explosion, scaring the crew enough to think the ship might blow up. If they evacuated temporarily and then lost track of the Mary Celeste, that would explain why they never returned. No single explanation is universally accepted. In 2006, an experiment showed that alcohol vapors can indeed create a large flare without truly damaging a ship. This scenario might have panicked the crew. Others proposed the crew abandoned the Mary Celeste after a navigation error brought them to believe they were close to land. A sudden squall could then have separated them from the vessel. These ideas remain speculative, but they point to plausible reasons for an otherwise inexplicable event. What sets the Mary Celeste apart is how pristine it appeared when discovered. The cargo was mostly secure and the personal items undisturbed, an unusual state for a vessel supposedly ravaged by any major crisis at sea. That haunting image of an abandoned dinner table still resonates, the fine line between calm routine and sudden chaos. Though it didn't drift for years, it has retained the moniker of history's most famous ghost ship, precisely because it was found in near-perfect condition, missing only its crew and lifeboat. In the century and a half since, many have claimed to solve the mystery, yet the ghostly intrigue remains. Some say it stands as a cautionary tale of how quickly things can go wrong at sea, leaving no second chance to correct a fateful decision. For all we know, the Mary Celeste's final truth may always remain as hidden as the swirling tides that once carried her aimlessly in the Atlantic. The Bermuda Triangle is notorious for tales of lost aircraft, vanished ships, and bizarre compass malfunctions. Yet far across the globe in the Pacific lies a similarly fearsome patch of sea known as the Dragon's Triangle, or the Devil's Sea. Found roughly off Japan's southern coast, it's been blamed for strange disappearances, rumored sightings of ghostly vessels, and legends involving monstrous creatures beneath the waves. Much of this area's bad reputation stems from the region's complex geography. Underwater volcanoes lurk along the seafloor, sporadically erupting to churn the ocean, create massive swells, and potentially sink anything unlucky enough to be overhead at the time. Some believe these volcanoes could explain the formation of new islands that later vanish, fueling myths of entire ships witnessing the sudden rise or fall of land. Others point to unpredictable weather patterns where cold and warm currents converge, generating violent storms and thick fog. Electronics might fail during these meteorological onslaughts, leaving ships adrift and disoriented. One of the most intriguing rumors is that centuries ago, Mongol fleets led by the grandson of Genghis Khan tried to invade Japan, only to be wiped out by catastrophic typhoons in these very waters. While that part of the story is historical fact, locals later ascribed supernatural significance to the tragedies, believing the Dragon's Triangle was guarded by malevolent deities. Modern surveys have found relics of old shipwrecks and battlements, suggesting there might be more truth to the legend than was once assumed. Japan itself lost a research vessel with 31 scientists aboard when it ventured into the Dragon's Triangle to study the spate of disappearing fishing boats in the 1950s. The ship vanished. Later, wreckage was found, but not a single survivor. Authorities concluded it must have been struck by an underwater eruption or battered by sudden waves, though paranormal enthusiasts remain unconvinced. While it's possible that illusions like Fata Morgana, electromagnetic anomalies, or optical refraction can mislead onlookers in these tumultuous waters, similar to the Bermuda Triangle, most experts point to a simpler answer. The Pacific Ocean is enormous and can be dramatically unforgiving. If you add volcanic activity to the mix, you have a recipe for swift destruction. No matter how rational the explanations, stories of entire fleets or modern fishing boats vanishing continue to unsettle those who sail near the Dragon's Triangle. It's a testament to the sea's complexity. Even in our modern era, not every corner of the ocean's behavior is under our control. When you put the Dragon's Triangle in context with the Baychimo or Mary Celeste, it underscores a sobering truth: the maritime realm remains as mysterious as it was centuries ago. We may never know the final fates of countless vessels that entered these swirling seas and never came home. Perhaps they lie scattered on the ocean floor, or, like some legends suggest, drift quietly into myth, no footprints left behind. Ghost ships aren't exclusive to distant centuries. Even today, vessels become mysteriously deserted or intentionally abandoned in all kinds of waters. Financial hardship, expensive repairs, and harsh weather can all contribute to these modern mysteries. Some owners, faced with ruinous upkeep costs, secretly leave their ships in remote areas and walk away, never to return. Others lose a vessel during monstrous storms, but the battered hull continues to drift for years. These abandoned ships aren't just spooky, they can be hazardous to navigators and the environment. A drifting hulk could easily collide with an unsuspecting passenger ferry. In shallow waters, these vessels might ground themselves, spill chemicals, or damage coral reefs and fragile habitats like mangroves and wetland marshes. Authorities across the globe have ramped up efforts to track and remove such potential threats, but the process is complicated. Identifying ownership can be a legal labyrinth, especially when a ship has passed through multiple hands or is registered under a flag of convenience to evade stricter regulations. One chilling example in more recent times is the MV Lyubov Orlova. A former Soviet cruise ship, it was left to rot in Canada. Eventually sold for scrap, the plan hit financial issues, and the ship drifted off into the North Atlantic in early 2013. Rumors ran wild that it carried hordes of disease-ridden rats. Though those claims were never confirmed, the vessel vanished from tracking radars and has never been definitively located, fueling speculation about a rat-infested ghost ship crossing the ocean. Scientists guess it likely sank in rough seas, but the unconfirmed nature of its final fate keeps conspiracies alive. Another noteworthy case is the yacht named Wolfhound, which was discovered floating aimlessly near Bermuda. Rescuers tried to tow it back to port, but dangerous weather forced them to cut it loose. Like so many others, it disappeared once again. Instances like these prove we're not dealing with ancient relics alone. Ghost ships are an ongoing phenomenon. Each new example rekindles fascination with the unknown, making it easy to see why maritime ghost stories never fade away. Maritime authorities stress that laws must be tightened to keep owners from abandoning vessels. Some countries have started imposing steep fines, but in isolated areas, enforcement remains challenging. For local economies relying on fishing or tourism, an abandoned ship can be catastrophic if it sinks and pollutes the shoreline. A 200-foot cargo ship rusting away off the coast isn't just an eyesore, it's a ticking time bomb that might suddenly dump oil or debris into the ecosystem. So, while ghost ships offer us a riveting sense of mystery, they also remind us of real-world responsibilities. The next time we see a drifting silhouette on the horizon, it might not be a centuries-old fable, it could be a brand new tragedy, still unfolding under the radar. The haunting tales of ghost ships inevitably breed rumors. Stories might begin as plausible narratives, then gather speculation that ranges from the conspiratorial to the downright bizarre. Often, these rumors revolve around hidden fortunes left on board or subversive criminal plots that forced a crew to disappear. Maritime insurers have reported multiple cases over the years where suspicious sinkings seemed orchestrated for payout. Could that be the fate of certain ghost ships as well? Some investigators suspect a portion of these vanishings point to insurance fraud. The scenario unfolds with a shady owner purchasing an aging vessel and taking out a hefty policy. Then, an incident at sea conveniently occurs, an alleged storm or leak results in total abandonment. If rescue ships find no direct evidence of sabotage, the owner can collect the insurance and vanish. Of course, rumor tends to fill in the blanks, with tales of secret cargo holds loaded with gold, or unscrupulous cartels using the vessel to transport contraband. Any actual misdeeds are often cloaked by sensational news coverage of a ghost ship. In older centuries, controversies included accusations of piracy. Rival shipping companies might sabotage a competitor's vessel, forcibly removing the crew and leaving the ship for lost. Today, despite advanced maritime tracking, piracy is still real in certain parts of the world, but official records rarely confirm an abandoned ship scenario as piracy. More often, attacks are immediate robberies, leaving little behind. Still, rumors swirl. Every ghostly silhouette captured on a smartphone camera can spark claims of smuggling, kidnapping, or stranger conspiracies. A particularly jarring rumor concerns the elusive phantom fleets said to prowl remote seas, where modern slavers or illegal traffickers use old vessels that appear to be falling apart. The idea is that these ghost ships can approach unsuspecting targets without raising suspicion until it's too late. There's very little hard evidence supporting these darker conspiracies, but it underscores the abiding fear many have of the open ocean's lawless spaces. On the less sinister side, people love to believe in the possibility of hidden riches aboard long-lost ships, untapped cargo or gold bars from centuries past. Treasure hunting shows sometimes highlight sunken or abandoned vessels discovered unexpectedly. Occasionally, these hunts yield historical artifacts or valuable goods. But more often, everything of real worth was already looted, or the cargo has rotted away. Still, the rumor mill rarely sleeps. Each discovered ghost ship becomes a new springboard for imaginative speculation, and for every factual explanation, there seem to be a dozen tantalizing fantasies. Whether you lean toward rational explanations or wild conspiracies, these controversies illustrate how the specter of an abandoned ship triggers a primal sense of unease. Humans thrive on stories of hidden motives and secrets swirling in the tide. And perhaps that's the real power of the ghost ship phenomenon. It stokes our collective imagination, always whispering that something unexpected might be lurking right beyond the horizon. No conversation about ghost ships is complete without at least a glance at the Bermuda Triangle. This region between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has decades of stories about vanished planes and ships, sometimes with no wreckage ever found. The largest to go missing in these waters was the USS Cyclops in 1918. With 306 people aboard, it never sent a distress signal. Skeptics assert the area's heavy traffic alone accounts for the large number of accidents, but that doesn't explain the many unanswered questions about how entire vessels disappear so cleanly. Then there's the Wolfhound near Bermuda, discovered bobbing in the open sea, the motor silent and the sails down. Its crew was rescued before the yacht sank, or so they believed. The rescue party claimed the Wolfhound had gone under, yet other sailors later reported encountering the same yacht, eerily abandoned. While modern science points to violent storms, rogue waves, or navigational confusion, rumors swirl around supernatural influences or freakish magnetic anomalies. The truth could be more ordinary, but the aura of the Bermuda Triangle persists. Real or not, the region's stigma is enough to jangle nerves for many seafarers. Beyond the Bermuda Triangle, the Atlantic harbors other perilous zones, like the lesser-known Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica, notorious for massive waves and swirling currents. Many ships have disappeared there as well. But overshadowed by the Bermuda Triangle's media fame, Drake Passage vanishings remain less sensational, yet no less real. Ultimately, it may be unfair to single out any one region as uniquely cursed. The ocean itself, across the globe, remains an unpredictable environment. Yet the stories from these triangles and devil seas remind us that ghost ships can pop up anywhere. The next chilling discovery of an unmanned vessel may well happen far from the Bermuda Triangle, possibly turning a quiet corner of the ocean into the next hotspot for maritime folklore. From the icy fate of Baychimo to the centuries-old riddle of the Flying Dutchman, and from the bizarre abandonment of the Mary Celeste to the swirling danger zones like the Dragon's Triangle, we see a pattern: the ocean refuses to be fully tamed. Ships vanish or reappear in unlikely locations. Crews walk away for reasons unknown. Investigations yield more riddles than resolutions. And the entire cycle repeats over generations. One thing remains constant: our fascination with ghost ships is as unshakable as a barnacle on a ship's keel. These sagas linger in the collective human psyche because they tap into timeless fears of isolation, of losing control, of venturing into a realm governed by nature's fiercest impulses. But they also speak to our longing for discovery. Every tale of a ghostly vessel conjures the possibility of stumbling upon a maritime time capsule. Maybe you'd find artifacts from 100 years ago or evidence explaining a century-old enigma. Today, advanced satellite and radar technologies promise fewer mysteries. Yet these improvements haven't ended the phenomenon of ghost ships. Vessels continue to be discovered, drifting empty and battered, reminding us the sea still hides secrets. Some might indeed be solved by looking at rough weather, poor navigation, mechanical failures, or unscrupulous individuals seeking insurance payouts. But sometimes, as with the SS Baychimo or Mary Celeste, logical answers only partially plug the holes in the story. Pieces remain missing, fueling the endless speculation that something larger may lie beneath the waves. So, are ghost ships truly cursed apparitions, or simply products of chance, storms, and human error? The answer sits somewhere in the overlap of science, history, and myth. What's undeniable is the tingle we feel when we imagine a deserted deck out on a moonlit ocean, the hush of the wind in sagging sails, a creak of timbers carrying the echoes of vanished voices. Even if every puzzle eventually gets a rational explanation, the haunting allure of these stories will never fade. They invite us to remember that while our maps may be detailed and our knowledge vast, the Earth's seas are still a frontier, no less mysterious today than they were for the sailors who first spun tales of the Flying Dutchman centuries ago. With each lost ship that emerges from the gloom, or each new rumor of a spectral vessel adrift, our sense of wonder at the ocean's secrets surges anew. The final question remains: could yet another ghost ship be drifting somewhere right now, waiting for the next unprepared traveler to catch a glimpse and transform it into the next immortal legend?